children are impressionable. And like the little mirrors that they are, both metaphorically and dimensionally, whatever they see, they're likely to mimic or imitate. And what kid do you know from the 90s that didn't try to charge up a Kamehameha wave or turn Super Saiyan? What adult today, born in that era, isn't still trying to do that? Except me. In my case, I'm busy trying to throw shadow aura or auras, or give my pillow an elbow massage, pretending it's a steamroller, and screaming about how useless it is. Or I'm busy throwing one massive plus ultra punch. I did try to go Super Saiyan when I was a kid, though. I'm not gonna pretend I did. But while a Saiyan is a fictional race, you've never seen a black one. I've definitely created one in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, but that's the issue. I had to make it 17 years after first watching the anime. There weren't a lot of black heroes in the 90s, at least none that I knew of. So a kid like me has to compartmentalize these feelings of exclusion from various media that I'm constantly turning to for entertainment. And I would continue to do this for 20 years, not quite realizing how much it hurt. And even though at that time, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers did exist, I mostly experienced it through the one VHS that I had and in reruns. Now, make no mistake, Adam is my favorite Power Ranger, but it didn't change that I wanted to see Zack so I could feel included. I just wanted to feel included long before I even considered a starring role. And I guess that's why I tend to connect with characters that aren't in the spotlight. My favorite JoJo character isn't a JoJo. My favorite Power Ranger isn't the leader. My favorite character in Lion King isn't the hero. That kind of thing is potentially damaging to a person's growth, their development. You can catch on to this and then go down a path where you obsess over being number one. Or you can fall into it without realizing and then be content just playing the background. And for me, it didn't help that the type of kid I was didn't fit in with anyone. I wasn't raised in a hip-hop environment, so I wasn't black enough for the other black kids. The white and Hispanic kids did accept me, but because I didn't speak a certain way, I didn't dance, I didn't play sports, I wasn't into rap music, they called me an Oreo. And I just let that be my identity for most of my life because it's how I felt accepted. So to one day hear that Black Panther is coming to the big screen, I didn't care. As had been my experience up until that point, most black characters on screen were relegated to comic relief. House
This
Negro,
is another cheeky black bugger like yourself, Steven. Steven, this here's Django.
The Token, Magical Negro Guide, The Wise Best Friend,
Used to be such a nice, quiet girl.
an Animal,
No. Royal Highness, you are gonna mince these mushrooms.
the Strong Black Woman, the one that comforts the white protagonist and calls them Chad or Baby, or some combination of all of them.
So tell me what model needs my protection, great ancestor. You just say the word and I'm there.
So I grew up believing that blackness was a joke. But in 2015, I had a conversation with a coworker. We started talking about the Black Panthers, how they were confused with the Black Panther. And before long, we moved on to me. We moved on to me and why I was so self-loathing for so long. That conversation lasted 5 hours. 5 hours on the clock talking about my history and our history. Because before long, he talked to me about our black history, the things I didn't know, the things I misunderstood, spiritually rebooted me. When I tell you I felt sick to my stomach, it was like that scene in the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. The next morning, I woke up with a new attitude. It was then that I started to fathom how big it could be if it was done right. Surely enough. At most, T'Challa told one joke. He was a king on a mission. He didn't stop till he fulfilled it, and he was receptive to the lesson he could have learned. My king only had 11 minutes on screen. In his 11 minutes, he showed us exactly what it is to be human. He suffered loss, he acted on emotion, he discovered he was wrong, he showed mercy to the actual culprit, and provided shelter and rehabilitation for the person he almost killed. And when we saw that Black Panther film, it changed everything. I saw myself, I saw a representation, I saw what could be. Having been nothing more than an Oreo my whole young life, and never believing I could be anything more, that was gone. All of that was gone. I finally believed in the king, in me. Inspired, I went and I picked up several Black Panther comics. I spent hours, days, just reading, flipping through the pages. And I had the most fun with this impromptu Easter egg hunt. But the thing that stood out most to me, you could not have scripted. In the series written by Christopher Priest, King T'Challa is pictured with a little girl in the newspaper. They're celebrating the establishment of a fund that's going to help people. Sometime later, he finds out that that girl is missing. At the same time, Wakanda is at war with itself. It needs its king, but T'Challa, he says, what kind of king would I be if I am to ignore a child that needs me? I'm not gonna say anything else. I want you to read that comic. In the real world, our King Chadwick Boseman was regularly visiting children with cancer. And this was his reaction to the story of two terminally ill children that hung on just to see the film.
Just to experience those two little boys' anticipation of this movie. And when I found out that they yeah, it means a lot.
That same year, I fell in love with anime. But anime didn't love me back. I found a character that I loved deeply. I love what he stood for. I love everything about him. Remembering the type of child that I was, remembering the type of hero that I needed, I aspired to bring a version of the heroes I love to life so that little black kids like me wouldn't hurt the way that I did. So now, in 2020, when I get a text from my best friend asking if I had heard about Chadwick, and I rushed to Google when I heard that my king had died. I've lost a lot of people in my life, but I've only ever cried twice. And that was the second time. I begged and I pleaded and I sobbed and I gasped for air. I was hoping it wasn't real. Our one and only connection to the superhero world. The only one that wasn't somebody's sidekick. The only one that wasn't singing spirituals. The only one that wasn't chewing watermelon and spitting out the seeds. The only one that wasn't obsessing over fried chicken. The only one that wasn't on some sort of drug or addicted to anything. He's gone. I would spend the next day crying off and on. I spent the whole next day crying off and on. That night I went to sleep dreading an emptier world the next day. When I woke up, I realized I was 2 episodes behind on Fire Force. We are now in season 2 and they introduced their first black character. And while it tickled me that his design essentially makes him look similar to me, just like the years before, I was ready to be a joke again. I just didn't care. So when he started to do this,
いや俺一人で大丈夫だ上げてくぜフレーミング
no pun intended, my heart was set ablaze. I was inspired anew. A powerful black character that someone that looked like me but represented properly. It was as if the universe was saying, don't give up. Man, after meeting him, I immediately started doing push-ups. Oh my God, I did 100 push-ups that day. In fact, I have done 100 push-ups every single day since then. And if I missed, I would do 200 the next day. It reminded me of the importance of representation. It reminded me I need to get back to work. I need to pick myself up and get back to my cosplay. In closing, I want to say 2 things. First, to my king himself. I didn't believe in life after death. I never have. But for the first time in my life, I wish for your safe passage to the ancestral plane. While I am not myself ready to be without you, I understand. For the first time in my life, I understand what it is to have purpose. So, if I may borrow some of your words, a gift from a king is more than silver and gold. It is a seed of hope. Let he who has watered be watered. And while you have given, you are no longer here to be given to. What I understand about your passing now is it's on us now to give to the younger generation as you gave to us. And finally, the best friend that I saw Black Panther with, of course he's the one that tells me about Chadwick's passing. We found parallels between ourselves and the 2 kings in that movie. It's only fitting that we talked about this and dealt with it together. Surely enough, when the pictures of our king in his final moments started to get to me, I talked to him about it. And he gave me the V8 forehead slap. Because he reminded me in the most beautiful way that my other favorite hero has a very similar story to our king. How this hero only presented his most powerful self to the world. His most powerful self, but his most gentle. But while he showed us his strength, he suffered in silence. He reminded me of how this hero gave us as much as he could until he absolutely could not anymore. He reminded me that while these images may very well hurt, that's not how we are to remember him. We have to remember him for the hero he was. And most importantly, we have to remember his final and most important message.
Now, it's your turn.
T'Challa. Amatam Sanhua Nancy Kalelo?
It was close. It was close.
Don't laugh, I practiced that.
Jaburela. Jaburela.